So we do have two education people here, and basically the story is that we've been talking about these fund balances that school districts have been dipping into for a while now, and this year they're dipping into at an 18% rate hike of more. You know what I'm trying to say. This is not good news for school districts, some of which are only able to provide a sound basic education by the skin of their teeth at this point. So what's the situation, Michael, financially?
Well, last year they used about $1.3 billion in the reserves. This year they're projecting to use $1.2 billion. Leaving about $1.4 billion going forward. So as you can see, they're slowly over the last couple of years, they've been steadily drawing down on their unrestricted fund balances. And the unrestricted is the part that they can use to plug holes in their budgets.
Basically, it's like a savings account.
It's a rainy day fund, yes.
It's their rainy day fund
for a couple of years now, and many school districts are close to exhausting these rainy day funds. And when they do, then they become basically fiscally insolvent because they're not going to be able to keep their doors open and maintain their educational programs.
I'm going to get to Billy in a minute, but Michael, the school budget votes are coming up next week, and there are districts that are planning to override the cap, but not many.
Yes, there's last year I think there were like 50 something. I think there was 51 school districts, and this year there's about 28 school districts that are planning on the override. But again, it just shows that school boards and school administrators are cognizant of voters and making sure that they present budgets that pass. Because if budgets don't pass, there can be catastrophic repercussions for their schools and their students.
Basically, those catastrophic repercussions means what, Billy?
Well, what we're already seeing in schools over the last couple of years under the Cuomo administration has been a significant undermining of the quality of education. We're seeing advanced placement courses have been cut, summer school programs have been cut, arts and music in many schools, many other things have been cut as well. And school boards and are doing the best I think they can with the hand that's dealt with them. So the budget vote next week is important in local districts to get out and vote yes for those budgets. But at the same time, we have to recognize that the problems facing our schools have their origin here in Albany, and that the governor's policies are moving our schools in the wrong direction.
Specifically, the policies that you're referring to are the tax cap?
Well, a bigger problem even than that is the limited amount of state aid they were providing. This was the best budget in several years, but still, it's not enough to prevent more cuts. And the whole idea of improving schools has just been punted out of the stadium entirely. We're not looking at what we need to do to help schools improve. So you have schools like Utica, which have cut almost 300 teachers and are now going to cut another 50. You have, programs, class sizes there are going to go up to 34 per class. It's just moving in the wrong direction, and we need the state to get serious about education.
So, Billy, the state would say, well, we don't have any money, and the biggest increase in aid went to education.
Well, the state has made choices. I mean, we cut taxes on millionaires and billionaires by $2.5 billion. There's a number of corporate loopholes that we could close. A lot of this is about priorities. We should be doing all we can to find cost savings in education, and a lot has been done by school districts to cut things like energy costs and administrative consolidations. But nonetheless, the state has made choices. Bigger priorities. We're cutting taxes on millionaires and billionaires. And we also have a huge inequity in our schools. We're one of the leaders in educational inequity, and nothing's being done to address that.
Michael, back to you. You focus on school finances, and finances do equal policy to some degree. Mm-hmm. And when you see that they're dipping into their fund balance, their savings account at a greater and greater rate, what does that mean? What do you think that means in terms of the education they could deliver?
Yeah, I agree with Billy in the sense that the quality of our education has gotten worse and not better over the last couple of years. And that is due to decisions made here in Albany. Where I disagree is that, funding has increased. This is a good year in terms of state aid increases. The state, like you said, can't print money. And what the legislature and the governor failed to do is deliver on mandate relief. Our expenses continue to rise, whereas our income, our revenue, either through local property taxes or state aid, have been flatlined in a way. So our revenue is flat, our costs continue to rise, and what's going to happen is this tremendous gap. And in the SED, the State Education Department, projected by 2016 or 2017, there would be like an $18 billion gap between revenues and expenses. And so that is going to continue to be an outlying problem, and the legislature really needs to deal with our costs, and not to the detriment of teachers or to the detriment
I asked the governor that, are you going to deal with WICS? Are you going to deal with Triborough? Or are you going to deal with Scaffold? And he said, no.
Right. I mean, I think those three issues aside, there are so many other areas where we could do. Those are big, huge.
Let's just take that elephant and put it over there.
Yeah, and let's put it aside. I mean, we could talk, till our faces are blue and, not get anywhere on those three areas. And so let's move on to something else.
But, the thing is, if those things are not politically viable, then what is politically viable?
Well, I mean, school boards, superintendents, business officials, we've all come up with recommendations for mandate relief that could go beyond those.
What about a hike on the highest earners?
Well, that's something that's really outside of school finance issues. And
you take it.
We would take it, but you have to be careful that you don't kill the golden goose. And so we try to make the state more business friendly, and we don't want to drive people out of the state. On the other hand, everybody should pay their fair share. So there's a balancing act that you have to have here.
Billy, I see the frustration in your eyes.
Well, I mean, the argument has been used that if we have a tax rate as high as New Jersey's, that people will leave New York and then go to New Jersey. Doesn't make any sense. Our tax rates are lower than New Jersey. California just raised their tax rates by a voter referendum in order to fund education. Bottom line is, we should do all we can to save costs, but we are not even talking anymore in the state about improving the quality of education. This is not just about whether schools are holding on to what they have. Our poor and high-need schools have never had the resources they need to adequately serve students. That's why there was a lawsuit, Campaign for Fiscal Equity. That's why the small city school districts are back in court now. And the courts have always found, I expect in the small cities case, they'll find in favor of the plaintiffs again, because the state has abandoned the idea of raising the quality of education for our high-need schools. So we can't just sort of save our way out of the fact that we have a long history of inequity of education in this state. The state needs to invest and invest heavily. I mean, the governor had a few good ideas this year. I just want to talk about a couple of those ideas. Pre-K, which is something we strongly support, extended learning time, these are good ideas. However, we have to get serious about them. Extended learning time, the governor's plan on extending learning time will only help 0.5% of students in the entire state. It's not a reform.
How do you come up with that number?
Well, if you take the amount of money he invested, $20 million, you take the amount he says that it costs per student, $1,500 per student, that's how you get 0.5% of students are served. To focus it on all the high-need districts and the districts that really need it and invest heavily in those, that would be a good idea to expand learning time. But we have to get serious, not just have a little boutique program.
This is all wrapped up into, mandate relief for cities as well. Yesterday, the governor came out with a plan to have a panel of people that they can advise. What I'm saying, you're shaking your head, Michael, but the thing is, it's all the same issue. The money comes from the taxpayer, and there's not enough money.
Right.
So, we can always go back to the unions are they don't want to give up stuff. Well, you know what? People don't want to give up stuff. They also earned it. At the same time, I'm not hearing any other alternatives. So, when we're talking about, cities are one thing,
right,
and your police and your fire, and then you're talking about your kids.
Well, for instance, the State Education Department was the last year or the year before now, I can't remember. It came out with this report, it was 30 pages long, 200 recommendations of where our state regulations for special ed exceeded the federal regulations.
Okay.
That cost savings.
And
we
it
spent
died.
About $9 billion a year on special ed in the state.
And it died.
Yeah, it didn't go anywhere. And then on the other hand, you have the legislature pushing for expansion of services to special ed, for specific groups of people. It just they're out of touch with what's happening, and they really need to act on doable mandate relief that we all can agree on. I mean, we're busing kids to schools out of New York State. Why are we even doing that?
I think that example there of busing kids out of the state is one that you probably could get a broad-based consensus in the education community. I think that I agree with what Michael's saying, that the governor and the legislature need to provide more leadership to arrive at what there are consensus around in cost savings. And we should do those things first because we need some momentum. The state has not done enough in this whole area, but we should start with where can we drive consensus? Where can we all work together to
right now we're not even
savings.
On that page, unfortunately. I want to thank you both. Michael Borges is the Executive Director of the State Association of School Business Officials. Billy Easton is with the Alliance for Quality Education. Obviously, this issue is just going to get more and more serious until we find a fix. We'll be right back.